This is Marc Kramer. I'm a senior faculty member at VinUniversity teaching entrepreneurship, and I am the host of Asian Founders and Funders. Today, our guest is Danny Hwang, founder, CEO of True North International School and Point Avenue. Danny, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So, Danny, let's start off with, and I want to say thank you in advance for the fact that you served in the armed forces of the United States. So let's talk about a little bit about your background, and I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was born in Korea, immigrated to the United States at the age of 5, and I had the great privilege of serving my country. Went to the United States Military Academy at West Point and spent 6 years in service, did 2 combat deployments overseas in Iraq. And after 6 years, then transitioned to education and entrepreneurship in Asia. And that's about 12 years ago since.
So what made you leave the military where, West Point grad, that's incredibly prestigious for people who don't know. That's the most prestigious academy you could possibly graduate from. It's like the Harvard of military. What made you decide to give up a career in the military and go into education?
Yeah, so my older brother, he's an MIT alum, so almost as good as West Point. He ended up transitioning to educational entrepreneurship and started an education technology company and invited me to join him. So it was really my older brother's calling, and then the opportunity that he presented. His name's Sam or Samuel, and really wanting to work with my brother to create something of meaning and value to help deliver student learning outcomes. And yeah, that was 12, 13 years ago since.
But you didn't have to stay with it. What made you decide to stay in the education field, and what do you like about it?
Resilience, because as you know, you've also committed your entire career to education and mentorship. Education is definitely not an easy industry or profession because we have to give all of ourselves to our students. And of course, that's it's also an honor to be able to help mentor and shape the future. Yeah, I think the reason I decided to transition was because of my brother's calling. The reason why I decided to stick it out and stay with it all these years, I've recognized that it's my passion. In the military, I was mentoring young soldiers to train to fight on the battlefield and hopefully to win. And then, of course, in education, I'm mentoring and our team members, we're mentoring students to train to fight on the battlefield of life. Reminds me of a very meaningful quote by General Douglas MacArthur, who's a West Point graduate. And he said, in war, there is no substitute for victory. So I've translated that meaning into, in life, there is no substitute for victory.
And so how do you define victory for your students when you're coaching them and telling them, because not everybody is going to be Albert Einstein and win a Nobel Prize?
Yes, victory, just like success and happiness, should be defined by the individual, and it should be unique to that person. Here at True North International School, our motto is discover your true north. So I think the most important thing is as you go along life's journey, hopefully you surround yourself with the right people, the right community of like-minded, but also passionate, positive. I think positivity is an important part of life. People who provide you with the advice and mentorship and guidance you need so that you can make the decisions and live the life you want to. So I think victory is living your best life the way you want to live it and being the author of your own story rather than living up to someone else's expectations or doing something because it's the popular choice or because you've been peer pressured to doing so.
So that brings me to, especially here in Vietnam, a couple things. Why did you start the school here in Vietnam? I mean, you're ethnic Korean, but you grew up in the United States. How did you end up here in Vietnam?
So the story before Vietnam was China. And once again, my brother invited me to join him, and he chose China because he was actually at the education boom, the education technology boom, where he recognized that a lot of the students from China were studying abroad. And China, even now, is the #1 country that sends the most number of students to the United States. Vietnam has now gone up to 5. So it's 5th in terms of the most number of students studying in higher education. And so for my decision for Vietnam, there's actually multiple reasons. #1 actually is, as you know, I have the military roots. A lot of my mentors and professors and individuals who are big giants in my life served in the conflict here. And they would often talk about this, of course, from an American's perspective. And it was almost as if they left a part of themselves behind as a result of the conflict and some of the atrocities. And war is never a good thing. And so they always wanted to find their way back to Vietnam and give back in some meaningful way. And so for me as a veteran, as someone who served my country, I felt that it was also my moral obligation to come to Vietnam at some point in time to help give back in a positive and meaningful way. And honestly, what better way than through education, through developing youth and helping them have global citizenry. We call it academic rigor, fitness and wellness, and then character. So these are the 4 pillars of excellence we have at True North International School, and also at Point Avenue, we call character first. Point Avenue is an after-school English language training center, and True North is a K-12 international school here in Hanoi, and really felt that we could create the positive impact and really invest into the future of Vietnam and of the world through education.
I have to say, your school is so impressive. The facilities are amazing looking. But what's more impressive when I visited your school was how smart these kids are that you're training. What makes your school unique? Because there are a lot of for-profit schools or nonprofit, independent schools outside of the public school system, and more coming to Vietnam, especially with all the manufacturing companies that are moving into Vietnam. So what makes this school unique, and why did you start this?
It's a great question. And I believe that one of the main focuses for us is we are at the intersection of education and entrepreneurship. And you yourself, very successful investor, entrepreneur, you've started some incredible businesses and created opportunities for many. Entrepreneurship is addressing a pain point, creating something of meaning and value. And it's not about yourself, but it's about others and having hopefully a legacy that you can leave behind. And so in our school, what's unique is, and I remember, Mark, when you visited, you mentioned this, when you're walking through the hallways, students actually come up to you and they greet you. They say, "Hey, how are you? How's your day?" And having that interpersonal interaction and recognizing and treating people with kindness, that's a skill set we need not only in business, but in life. And of course, what's also important is we are an AP school. So we have the advanced placement, one of 3 AP schools here in Hanoi. We, of course, have the Common Core and the next generation science standards and various other components to our curriculum, to the framework and what we deliver to our students. But at the core of everything, it's about student empowerment. So across the school, from grade 1 to grade 10, which is where we're currently have the grades represented, students are starting their own companies, independent projects, initiatives, and various other platforms are created in terms of food waste, in terms of healthy fitness and lifestyle, in terms of wastewater management. Just, you name it, our students are taking the initiative to build their own projects, to take responsibility, to do good unto others. And that's what education should be.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. So the education field is a very competitive space and becoming more and more competitive. What's your mindset in terms of handling the competition? And I guess no one's better prepared to handle competition than a West Point former military commander.
Yeah, so I think the way we think about competition is rather than trying to be like others or compare and compete with others, we focus on our fundamentals. In the military, we always said focus on the fundamentals, which is purely on student learning outcomes, on teacher professional development, on creating this culture. We call it 3 C's: children first, culture always, community forever, and being the best that we can be. And as a result, parents will make the decision. Parents have the right, students have the right to study where they want to. And we just want to be the best we can be and allow parents and students to make the decision for their future.
What's the hardest part of being a educational entrepreneur?
I think the hardest part is breaking from some of the norms, because a lot of individuals in education, right? It's an old institution. It's been around for a long time. And usually when we think about education, it's more in the traditional sense. You have the teacher who's at the front of the classroom, and then you have students all facing the teacher and learning in this traditional methodology. However, just like we're innovating in companies and in startups and as entrepreneurs, we need to also innovate in the classroom. We use the Harkness method, where students sit around more in a round table. Students are now at the center of discussion rather than teachers, and teachers teach through the Socratic method of discussion-based. And of course, a lot of this is modeled after West Point, where we actually have to go into the classroom, every single class on time. Being on time is important, and prepared to lead our learning rather than to be led. Of course, there's a lot of areas of growth for our school, a lot of areas where we need to continue to improve. And I think the important thing is we're committed to it. Just like as entrepreneurs, you're committed to improving all the business outcomes. We're committed to improving all the student learning outcomes.
Well, what's the profile of the type of teacher you look to hire? And is that different than other schools are looking to hire?
Yeah, so because we are at the intersection of education and entrepreneurship, we look for, recruit, and also once they on board, we train teachers who have that entrepreneurial mindset, individuals who are flexible, who are agile, who are adaptable, individuals who do more than just come into the classroom to teach their class and go home, but are truly committed to student success, are committed to empowering the students so that they can do more. And yeah, I mean, this process requires a very tedious or very kind of lengthy process of interviewing and onboarding and placing teachers. And then after the fact, right, this ongoing continuous improvement and training that we need to provide as administrators and as educators ourselves. But that is really the type of DNA that would make up a True North International School teacher. And ultimately, that will trickle down into our students. When they go out into the world, wherever they study, whatever company they represent, we want them to be individuals who are contributors, who don't sit around complaining and identifying the problems and just leave it at that, but identify the problems and seek solutions and take initiative, are self-starters.
And so today, education is much different. I'm 63 years old. Education is way different now than when I was the kids' ages from first grade to 12th grade. What's the teacher to now have to master? What do they have to be really good at that probably didn't happen even when you were in school? And what's the teacher of tomorrow going to look like?
Yeah, I think the teacher today has to learn to manage distractions, because students live in a world of distractions. We can't go into a classroom and say, no technology. I'm going to turn the internet off and we're going to just write pencil to paper. Of course, there are moments when we have to do that, but it's how do we leverage all of the educational tools, these distractions, and utilize them in an effective way. Also teach students, it goes back to some of the military mindset, discipline. When you have temptations, when you want to take shortcuts, when you want to distract yourself, you got to keep first things first. You got to learn to prioritize the limited time that you do have, and you got to learn to say no. And so there's many tools or many strategies that we can employ and teach our students. Something as simple as when you go home after a long day at school, you turn in your devices, like your cell phone, to your parents. You log off all of the social media, from Instagram to Facebook to Discord, all the video gaming, and you just focus your energy and efforts on academics. on development. And then, of course, because we need to be balanced, we have some personal time to ourselves. But there's these kinds of strategies that one can implement and, of course, stick to improve across all outcomes.
And so where does ChatGPT, where does it fit into the education model today? Because I'm teaching at a university, and obviously students are using chat. Of course, the professors are as well. But one of our big concerns is that, yes, it's great for you to do some research, but they're having them write full papers as opposed to them learning the skill of writing itself. What's your take on chat in the educational market?
Yeah, just like everything, right? Do it with moderation. Of course, with intention, good intention. So if you have AI do all of your problem solving and do all of your writing, then how are you going to learn to be a good writer? How are you going to improve in this very invaluable skill set that will serve you for the rest of your life? So ChatGPT, just like Grammarly, and I guess when I was a kid, I used Spark Notes, but I read the book, and then just to make sure that I didn't miss out on key themes, I also read the Spark Notes. It was in addition to. So it can't be a tool to replace or to do our job. That always needs to be at the forefront. We need to do our own jobs. We need to take responsibility, but it can also be a tool that can be helpful. Right? There's a lot of ideas that can be generated through discussion, but also you can use ChatGPT to check and to get additional inputs. What's funny is you can really tell how ChatGPT writes, right? As educators, we know when a student has plagiarized or used ChatGPT to do all their work. When a student writes emails, it always starts with, "I hope this finds you well." That's ChatGPT.
So entrepreneurship is big for you. I mean, that's why you started this school, and you're a natural entrepreneur. And as I've heard from people who I work with, who work with you, you're an inspiring leader. Where does entrepreneurship fit into the school curriculum, and at what age should we really start to teach our kids and encourage them to be entrepreneurs, whether it's full-time, part-time, or just part of the learning process for them?
I think it's never too early to start. Uh, Once again, you can incorporate elements of entrepreneurship into the STEAM lessons. We have the science, technology, engineering, arts, math, which is part of the mandatory curriculum here, starting in grade 1 to above. You can incorporate entrepreneurship into the clubs and extracurricular activities. As a matter of fact, thanks to you, Mark, we will be the first school, K-12 school, partnering with VinUniversity to launch our own chapter of the Entrepreneurship Lab. And so more to follow about that in future discussions. But we're excited. We have a group of about 20 students who have signed up for this club. We've discussed how they're going to run the school store. We're going to open up a study cafe where students can come after school hours, where we'll sell drinks and some food, and we'll sell some school supplies in there as well. And so these are the opportunities we create as a result of conversations with like-minded entrepreneurs who want to create something of value and not just talk the talk, but actually do it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to work with your kids in getting this off the ground as well. And I think for Vietnam, having all the schools in Vietnam be a part of our club and encouraging entrepreneurship at a young age will allow Vietnam to maximize its potential as a country and be thought of in the same way that people think about Singapore, because Singapore has such a phenomenal reputation for entrepreneurship and business, and Vietnam has all of that potential and probably more, based on its size and its natural assets that they have. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it, in business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in business, you never want to take somebody else's advice just at face value and run with it, right? I think it's important to take a step back. You need to listen more than you speak, and you need to do your own due diligence to fact find. And ultimately, the decision you make as an entrepreneur doesn't impact you alone. It impacts tens to hundreds to thousands of individuals and even beyond that. And so always take time to do the analysis, to do the research, to do the fact finding necessary before you make a decision. Now, once you make that decision, we have to be decisive, and we can't continue to look back and what if ourselves to death. We have to be decisive and move forward. Sometimes, honestly, there are no good decisions. From two bad decisions, we just have to make a decision and move forward. So I think along the way, along this journey so far of 6 years, I've made plenty of bad decisions, plenty of, maybe decisions that didn't lead to the most positive conclusions. But as a result of that journey, we as entrepreneurs, we grow, we learn. Never stop learning. We have to humble ourselves to really be lifelong learners and have that kind of mindset and inspire that mindset into those we manage and work closely with.
You going to the military academy, they're supposedly the greatest leadership teachers in the world. What did you learn about leadership from the academy? And also, how did that impact your the way you looked at entrepreneurship and run a business?
Yeah, I think leadership, and this is a quote, I believe Eisenhower, another West Point graduate, shared this, is having somebody else do something you want done because he or she wants to do it. And so what that means is, hey, you have to do it because I told you so. That type of leadership can be toxic, and it may not be the most effective, especially long term. But you will do it because you really see the value in the action you take and the results that will be delivered. And I will provide you with the resources and the support necessary. And after the fact, we'll also have what we call an after action review. We'll have an open discussion to see what we can do, what we did well, what we can improve. And that's the kind of leadership mindset I try. And I say try because, I'm far from perfect. I definitely have my shortcomings. So I try to bring forward within the organization.
Marketing a school like yours it can't be easy. I mean, you don't have an endless amount of money. You have to be creative. Who's the target market for you, and how do you market to them?
Yeah, so the target market for us are those families who see education as a long-term journey. So it's not short results. I want something now, give me. But it's a long-term journey, which means a long-term commitment from families. Also, holistic education. So, we grew up in the States. We know if you want to get into top institutions where you taught for 10 years, University of Pennsylvania, specifically at the Wharton School, you need to be well-rounded. You can't just be strong in academics or in test scores. You need to have leadership, community service. Most importantly, you need to be a good person. And so we focus on building the whole person. And wherever students come in at entry, we accept them for who they are. We identify their strengths and also identify their shortcomings. And we provide a personalized approach in developing each individual student and becoming the whole self. So this holistic approach, we believe, is the best value that education can provide. But once again, it's not a one size fits all, and we're not the only school out there. But this is the type of families who really understand our educational value and will decide to go with us for the long term.
What parts of the West do you feel your kids should learn about, and what parts of the East should they keep as part of their persona and central makeup?
Yeah, so I think we actually talked about this together, Mark. Discipline, a bit of being on time. When you are speaking, it's your turn. When you're not, you listen. Right? I've been in many kind of gatherings or meetings where there's a lot of background noise, and we're talking like people are actually talking when you're presenting. And in a Western context, that's just straight up rude. You'll be kicked out of the classroom. I believe you have very high standards for your students because that's the standard, right? It's not Mr. Mark standards, that's the standard. And so I think that a bit more in the Western context is necessary. Also this idea of it's more than just yourself, right? So individualism or just focused on self-improvement, on personal gain, that needs to be let go, because in America or in the Western world, actually globally, it's very difficult to succeed, very difficult to get things done just singularly, unilaterally, individually. And so the Western world provides a lot of opportunities for teamwork, for cooperation, for collaboration. You never want to be an individual who's siloed in his or her approach. I think there's a bit of that in this context. Of course, Vietnam, so many incredible things about Vietnam. And I know when you speak about Vietnam, you speak very, very positively about the people, about the culture, about the history. Some of the most positive attributes, just from my own personal experiences, are Vietnamese people are incredibly hardworking. Population is young. Mom and dad both work. I think Vietnam produces the most number of female CEOs. Hats off to the Vietnamese women, the backbone of the society here. And also the emphasis they have on education. It just reminds me of my childhood where my parents immigrated. They left comfortable Korea and immigrated to the United States so that my brother and I could have the best education opportunities. And remember the many times my mom drove us to cello lessons and swim class and all the extracurriculars that we were part of. And never once did she complain, hey, say thanks to mom. Never once, right? It was her responsibility. It was her duty, and she always delivered. So this type of family-centered, everything dedicated for, usually average of 2 kids, right? Vietnamese families for their kids is what will move the country forward. And as you said earlier, Vietnam is very promising. I'm very happy and blessed to be here during this transformation and during this journey. And it's exciting to see 10, 20 years from now, the students we've mentored at the university level and at the K-12 level, and also how far the country will move forward as a result of this mindset.
Did you have a mentor yourself?
Oh, absolutely. So my brother, older brother, in Korea, it's called Hwang, so 15 months apart, but he was more like a second dad to me. And then giants in my life, I can name them: Marlene Melvin, Lieutenant Colonel Lacey, Major Thompson. I mean, so many. And of course, these names have no meaning to you and maybe to others listening in, but they've had such a significant impact on my life. And the best part is, every single one of them always told me, pay it forward. Whatever I'm doing to you doesn't require services rendered back to me. I am where I am because of the giants in my life, and I want you to pay it forward. And that's the kind of mindset I bring to the table every single day when I come to work.
I think that's great. What entrepreneurs have you admired, and why did you select them?
One of my favorite books is Shoe Dog, which is a memoir by Phil Knight. And
yes, I have that.
I have 2 copies. One's autographed, so really cool.
Oh, wow.
And the founder of Nike there. And so some of the things that really resonate. First off, it's a very easy read. So anybody out there who's scared of reading these novels, don't worry, it's a super easy read. Anytime when he struggled, and in business we struggle, right? We have obstacles in the way. He would put everything down, put on his running shoes, and just go out for a run with a clear conscience. He would come back and resume work again. And so I think that's such an important thing that we need to remember. In life, we all need to have some outlet, whether it's running, whether it's yoga, whether it's mindfulness, whatever it may be. Hopefully it's in good things, right? Hopefully it's not pursuing the bad vices out there. And in doing so, it always brings us back to focus and the purpose behind why we're doing what we're doing. So I think that was a real big takeaway for me. And for me, fitness has always been an important part of my life, and West Point reinforced that. And then the second thing is he gives credit to his team. So it's never about me, but it's about the shoe dogs, all the lovers of shoes and individuals who are willing to do anything for that company. And as a result, Nike is one of the most successful, profitable companies. So yeah, I think those are the 2 biggest takeaways that I believe are important for entrepreneurs, for individuals to think about when they build their own companies or contribute.
Well, look at Phil Knight taking the risk. I mean, what Nike was really known for was his own passion, which was running. And basketball was secondary until Michael Jordan came along and blew up basketball during his period in the NBA. And now they're mostly known for their basketball sneaker, especially the Jordan brand, which is a $5 billion brand on its own. $5 billion, because Michael Jordan gets 10% of the revenue. That's what his mom negotiated. But Phil Knight took a big risk there. How do you look at risk? How do you evaluate risk?
That's an interesting question. So yeah, and by the way, I was just going to say, I think everybody owns a pair of Nikes, either Air Jordans or the Air Force Ones. I definitely do. I think as we grow older, and I'm 40 now soon, our risk appetite generally decreases, right? Because we have more to risk. And when you're young, it's kind of like risk it all. So in my perspective, I think calculated risks, you always need to think about the second and third order effects of every decision you make, the impact it has not only onto yourself, but if you're an entrepreneur, onto your people, right? No company can be successful without its people and its products. And so calculated risks and risks that are taken, once again, you have to be willing to accept the consequences and move forward, decisiveness, and move forward and live with that. So that's the general risk assessment process that goes through my mind anytime when I have to make important decisions that, of course, have associated risks intended. Generally, in the world of education, our risk appetite should be a little bit lower, right? Because once again, we're not selling used cars or selling some products that can easily be replaced. We're dealing with kids' futures. So it's not that we take risk in the student learning outcomes or take shortcuts and try things and then change. I don't mean risk in that regard, but risk in terms of innovation, right? We call it the 80-20 rule. When you take risks, 80% of what works, you keep. You can't risk it all. And so 20% is where you're constantly innovating and trying to bring in new opportunities for students, for faculty, for teachers, and that's how you grow.
So customer retention is always a big deal for any business, but in your business, you have a few different customers, right? You have the students themselves, you've got the parents, you got the teachers, and you got the folks who refer the students into your school. How do you view customer retention, and what do you do to keep customers happy?
The most important people are the students. And at the end of the day, parents value their children more than anything, as they should.